Yorkshire Shepherdess says parents are to blame for creating a generation of useless children.
Amanda Owens' unique parenting style, showcased on hit TV series Our Yorkshire Farm, sees her kids work outside in all weathers and go without TV or phones, believing it will make them more resilient. So, is the mother of 9 right?
Joining us now is the co-founder of the Black Mums Upfront podcast, Karina White. Karina has an 11-year-old daughter, says parents today aren't bringing up a generation of snowflakes. And we're also joined by writer, broadcaster and mother of 2, Marina Fogel, who says parents are doing their children a disservice by making things too easy for them. Let's come to you first. Marina, let's come to you first, Marina. So how do you sort of deal with being a parent and motherhood? Is it straightforward then for you?
I don't think it's straightforward for any parent. I think the one thing we all share is that we want to do the best job we possibly can, and we put a huge amount of pressure on ourselves. It's difficult though, because it's easy to wrap our children in cotton wool because we don't want to see them struggle. We don't like seeing them fail, but we sometimes lose sight of the fact that actually resilience is built through failing. It's built through adversity.
Wrapping in cotton wool mean? What does it mean in practical sense, in a day-to-day basis? What is wrapping in cotton wool? What does it look like?
I think the key really is not allowing them to fail, not allowing them to hurt themselves. A key part of growing up is understanding that if you fall out of, if you climb too high on the tree, you could fall out. If you don't try hard enough, you're going to fail at your homework. I think one thing that Amanda does brilliantly is giving her children purpose. There's this idea of chores that 3 generations ago was really normal. Every child did their chores. And nowadays, actually, we tend to do everything for our children. We helicopter parent them. If they go to school without their PE kit, well, I do it. I'll run and bring it to them. And actually what's really important is for them to learn that they will get into trouble, they will suffer the consequences if they forget their homework or whatever their music is. I think it's really important that they need to learn these lessons.
It's interesting you say that. I do recognise myself in some of those scenarios you've just put out. I have an 8-year-old boy. Why has our parenting, if that is true, why has our parenting style changed?
Maybe because life is a little bit easier. I was listening to something recently about how 3 generations ago this was the middle of the Second World War, the worst night of the Blitz, where the next day the children went back to school, the teachers went back to school. Life has become quite easy for us, and this year has been difficult. It's been a struggle, but let's face it, we stayed at home, and certainly for my children, this wasn't the most difficult year. They were not living in Syria.
You probably live in a really nice house and have all the amenities that children need. Let's speak to Karina. It's quite extreme what Amanda's saying. She thinks that children don't have a work ethic these days, that they're useless. I mean, that all seems quite extreme. I know lots of people with, young age groups who have lots of purpose in their lives. What do you make of what she said?
I mean, if we're talking about building resilience in children, the last year has been incredibly difficult for a lot of families and a lot of children. I think it's really easy to speak from a place of privilege to say that, we can drop PE kits off at school when our children forget them. I know I can't. I'm a single mum. I work full time. If my daughter forgets her PE kit, she forgets her PE kit, and there's nothing I can do about that because I'm, 10, 15 miles away at work. I'm not able to, run home and get her PE kit and drop it to school. So I do think that, children should build resilience, but being hard on them and expecting them to live through challenging times and taking away devices from them and saying that we're creating a useless generation of children, I think is really unfair. Just last week we saw children from Pimlico Academy that took maths into their own hands and protested at their school and said, well, actually we don't agree with this, so we are going to take maths into our own hands and we are going to protest. So at the end of the day, I think if anything, we're not creating a generation of useless children. We're actually creating a generation of change makers who are actually going to grow up and be the ones to say, actually, we're not putting up with this anymore, and this is what we're going to do to change things.
And it's interesting, isn't it, this idea? She talks about, her children who are allowed to roam the countryside free, which is all very nice if you have it. But if you live, in a difficult area where perhaps you are worried about your young boys especially playing out on the street, that's also good parenting, isn't it? I mean, to be cautious on behalf of your children is part of the job.
My daughter is 11 and she's been walking to and from school since she was 10, beginning of year 5, she started walking to and from school because I had to go out to work. And, you know, I worried about her all the time. I don't have that privilege to say, oh, go and run out in the back garden. We live in London, okay? We have, we worry about our young children, but at the same time, we still have to give them a little bit of freedom and a little bit of, you know, time to go out and enjoy themselves. So I don't, like I said, I don't think we're creating a generation of useless children. And I think it's really important when we have these conversations to recognise our privilege when we're saying things like that.
There's a few comments on social media here. People have tweeted in response to the question our parents are blaming for kids being soft. Nush on Twitter says, Amanda is so right about kids nowadays. Her kids are brilliant and I would love my son to be able to go on a farm and work hard. Barry says, I hear so much about primary age kids not able to tell the time on analogue clocks, write their own names, tie shoelaces, let alone read to a reasonable level. How will they cope in the future? Karina, with your kids, I mean, you know, can they tie their shoelaces? Are they able to tell the time themselves? And, you know, I mean, you know, do they make themselves a cup of tea? Do they do all those things?
Honestly, my daughter makes me, on Mother's Day, she made me breakfast and she made me a full Caribbean dinner on Sunday afternoon on Mother's Day. You know, she's 11. She's more than capable of doing those things. She can tie her shoelace. She can tell the time. And even if she couldn't tell the time, we're living in this technology era. Yeah. She can say, hey, Siri, and Siri will tell her what time it is.
But just final word to you, Marina. What I mean, just this idea of, you know, sort of it being the best way to sort of, you know, ban TV, ban the devices, and that being the best way. Is it hugely practical these days to say that to parents and make them feel guilty for allowing their children to use their iPads? You know, sometimes because you've got to do something else, and it does keep them, you know where they are when they're on their iPad at least.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, there's not a one size fits all when it comes to parenting. We all live in different situations. We all have, you know, different lives and different challenges. And our children are also different people. Some children will really thrive, you know, spending a lot of time with tech, and that will be their future in tech. You know, that's a lot of our future. So I think it is about kind of gut instinct. But I also think that it's really empowering to overcome adversity, to achieve something you don't think you might achieve. And I think a key part of being a good parent is to teach our children not to be scared of adversity, not to be scared of challenge. And whether that is walking to school on your own or fixing a tractor like Amanda's children do, all of those things are potentially scary, and once you've achieved them, really empowering.
Quite right, and maybe we just shouldn't judge each other so much and make sweeping statements about people being useless. That's my own personal view. Thank you so much, both of us, both Karina and Marina, for joining us this morning.